with new quizzes. Still haven't seen an actual definitive date for when the new quizzes will become like the quizzes, but for the time being, just know that quizzes as you know it will stop existing at some point. Good news is that we have this time now to start using new quizzes so that we can get some familiarity with it, but there's also some enhanced question types that are going to allow you to go a little bit deeper with students on assessing their understanding. So I'm going to use this video to go into some more detail about new quizzes so that you feel more confident turning it on and trying it in your classes. But I'm also going to be real with you. There's 2 or 3 things that at this point aren't completely developed in a way that is user-friendly. It's a couple extra clicks to be able to use some of the things, but I'll talk through those as well. And I've been assured by people very close to Canvas that this will not become the quiz tool until all of these bugs, or not really bugs, but all of these undesirable things are taken care of. But nonetheless, I want to use this opportunity to share some things with you. So here we go. First thing you'll need to do to use new quizzes is in a course. You'll need to do this in each of your courses. You'll go down to Settings, and then once you do so, up at the top you'll find the tab that says Feature Options, and then we're going to be looking for the one that says New Quizzes. We'll need to turn it on. Now by doing so, that doesn't do anything to this quizzes that's right here on your course navigation. That's still the quizzing tool that you've always used in Canvas. Nothing changes there. So how do you get to the new quizzes? That is actually going to be found under Assignments. Now, once this thing becomes like the actual quizzing tool, will you access it from quizzes? I don't know that part yet. But for right now, if you want to use new quizzes after you've turned it on the course, you click Assignments. Now you have a new button that appears that says Plus Quiz Test. So we go ahead and we click that. The first page you see will look very similar to what you're used to. You title it, My First New Quiz. You'll give it a point value. Let's stop right here because this is something that is a bit of an inconvenience, and I don't know if this is something that's going to be addressed or not. But you'll set a point value for your assignment, okay? But once you actually, or for your quiz, but once you actually get into the quiz, you'll assign a point value to each of the quiz questions. And it's all going to be scaled based on how many points it's worth. So you could have 10 questions worth 10 points each, which is technically 100 points. But if you only put 10 points on the actual quiz itself, it's going to adjust everything to reflect that 10 points possible. So in that example I gave you where you had 10 questions worth 10 points apiece, let's say a student got 95% or 95 out of 100. The actual points awarded on here are going to be 9.5 and not 10. And it'll tell you if your overall point total on the settings page doesn't match the points that are possible based on individual questions in the quiz. So that's just the first thing that I sometimes forget, but it's just something to keep in mind. Assignment groups and display grade as, that nothing changes there. This part here, submission type, don't touch that. It's going to stay as external tool. That's what's telling it to use this quizzing tool, because it's actually an outside tool that gives you some of these enhanced features. Synced assist, if I want this to go to PowerSchool after it's graded, I would check that. Keep in mind you can check that at any time before or after. Even after students have taken it, you can change your mind. The assignment screen here, everything's the same. So the one thing you might have noticed is in the old quizzes there was a tab up here that said questions. That's not there. So how do I get to my questions? Well, one of two things. You either hit save or save and publish. I would definitely recommend just hitting save, because if you hit save and publish, it's going to make this quiz available to your students without any questions in it. So definitely just hit save. Once you hit save, it's going to actually open up the question generating tool. Now this is going to look very different than the existing quizzing tool. Okay, so we're going to walk through it and show you the different features so that you can get a bit more comfortable with it. All right, so this is our build page. We title it. We give the instructions for the question itself. That's pretty self-explanatory. I even have a preview now so that I can actually preview my quiz before students take it. That wasn't there before. That's there now, which is really helpful. I can access item banks and outcomes, which are most specifically aligned with standards, from this page. When I click on settings, that's where I can go in and do things like shuffle questions, do one question at a time, require a student access code, set a time limit, filter IP address, allow calculator, that could be scientific or standard calculator, allow multiple attempts, and you can set how many attempts are possible, and you can restrict student result view. So most of those were available in old quizzes. You just actually got to them on the settings screen of the quiz itself. Now you actually get to it from this settings screen. So that will take a little bit of getting used to. Reports, you're going to be able to access some of the same reports you could in old quizzes, but it's a little bit more user friendly. So once you actually start giving some assessments here, I would encourage you to go in and take a look at the data. It's a lot more user friendly, and it's easier to look at. Moderate gives you the ability to see what students, where they are, how much time they've taken. I can even from here go in and put accommodations in. So if I know this particular student needs time and a half, I can do that. There's also ways I believe that you might be able to set that up for a student on all assessments. I'm not 100%, so don't quote me, but I think you can. But if not, you have to go in and set that accommodation per student per assessment. And then you can actually moderate it, so you can make some changes here. I can say, all right, Keith needs a few more attempts. So Keith gets a couple extra tries, whereas maybe other people don't. And then you can make adjustments on the fly as well. So to get back to the actual build part, I hit build, and that gets me back to the actual questions. If I want to go back into like Canvas, this doesn't look like Canvas right here. I click return. That takes me back into the kind of the traditional platform that we're used to. And these pages, these three buttons here allow you to go in and manage some item banks, and you can actually import if you've got a quiz that you've exported out of another learning management system or out of ExamView or something. I think that's probably where you do that. I'd have to kind of click around and see the process on that. But before I show you how to actually build the questions, I do want to mention that any quiz that you've already created in old quizzes, you can easily migrate, which means it'll convert it to new quizzes. It works pretty flawlessly. There's certain kinds of questions that might not come in, but for most of the examples that I've seen, the quizzes come in pretty seamlessly, and you don't have to recreate stuff you've already made. All right, so after we've added our title and our instructions, it's time to start adding questions. We click the blue plus button, and here are our choices. I'm going to quickly talk through these. Categorization allows you to put a collection of words or phrases, and you would establish some categories, and then students would drag and drop the words or phrases into categories. So there's a lot of applications for this where you're talking about vocabulary, or scientific classification, or there's lots of applications that you could use. It requires them to drag and drop it into the proper category. File upload would be if they were doing something external, like it could be a picture or a video, or it could be a Word document. They could actually upload the file as a response to a question. Formula is something that was in the old tool. It allows you to put math questions in, but you structure it in such a way that every student gets a different math problem. It's the same essential skill. So if I'm adding 3-digit plus 3-digit numbers, everybody's question number 2 is 3-digit plus 3-digit, but the students right next to each other would have actually different sets of numbers to work with. So formula is a good way to help with really assessing skill mastery without students necessarily having the same exact questions as the people next to them. So if you're interested in formula, reach out. I'd love to dig into that with you. Matching is just as it says. You just have things on the left, things on the right, and you match them up. Multiple choice, same as before. Ordering is another new one where you could take a list of terms, events, whatever, and it randomizes it, and then students must put it in the correct order. As of right now, all responses need to be in the correct order. If any one pair of things is out of order, the whole thing is wrong. So I know they've been kind of dealing with some feedback on that teachers would like to give partial credit. So I'm not quite sure what the status of that is, but just know that actually for categorization and for ordering, if any part of it is wrong, it's completely wrong. However, you can go in and manually override that score, because when you look at these quizzes in SpeedGrader, you can see what they got right, what they got wrong within an ordering or categorization, and you can manually adjust the score if you see fit. Essay would be essay response, fill in the blank, same as before. The process is different, but you would basically create a sentence or phrase. You would insert a blank, and then actually that one's pretty cool, because when you do it, I'll actually show you. You see you type a statement and then press enter, select text and press enter. So the opposite of hot is cold. Okay, so that's my statement right there. What I actually do is I will select the word that I want to create the blank, and I just failed. So if you're watching this video, you're probably laughing at me right now. Let me try this again. Clearly it says right there, type a statement. So here's where I do it. Whew. The opposite of hot is cold. There we go. Here I select the word I want to create the blank, create blank space, enter. All right, cool. So now your choices for answer type would be open entry, where they're given a blank space and they have to type it in. And I can say it has to contain the word cold, or I could say close enough. Close enough is more so, Lovenstein distance. That probably means something to somebody. Or I could say in that case, I might say spelling only. So if they capitalize the C in cold, I'm not going to count it wrong. So there's some ways that you can make it friendly or flexible. I could say exact match. It has to be exactly as I have it. That's syntax. That's everything. Or I could put in a list of acceptable correct answers. So that's one way they could do fill in the blank. I could also do drop down, where I put choices in, and then it's going to be a drop down. It'll say the opposite of hot is. They'll have a drop down, and it'll say long, cold, and tall. You would indicate the correct one. So that's one way. And then a word bank, you can kind of create a word bank over here. Oven. It's going to basically give a word bank, and they have to select the correct word out of the word bank. So there's a more application and more variety in the actual fill in the blank question type. Okay. So hotspot, that's another new one. You can actually take an image, and when you so I'm going to drag and drop an image in there, and when I do that, come on, try this again. All right, so there's my image. I might say something like select the question might be select the letter that makes the same sound as tree. I don't know. This is a horrible example. But what we'd want them to do is obviously E. So they're going to select, you're going to select the portion of the hotspot that is correct. And that means that if the student clicks anywhere in that box, they will be correct. You could also do a circle, or you could actually do an irregular shape. So I've done it with maps. I can actually, you can like trace odd shapes. Takes a little bit of practice, and it's better with a regular mouse. But you can actually trace irregular shapes as well. So there's a lot of applications there. You can just, any image, you can create a hotspot that they have to click within that spot to get credit for it. Numeric would be just as it says, a numerical answer, and then true false is just like it says. But another big question type here under quizzes is the stimulus. So the way the stimulus works is on the left hand side I'll have some sort of content. So I could either type something, I could insert a video, I could insert an image, I could insert a document. So they're going to be looking at something on the left side, and then on the right hand side they're going to be asking, you can ask questions. So you can have multiple questions that are referring back to the same content. So that was something that a lot of teachers were asking for, because they don't want to have to keep putting the content question when they want to ask multiple questions about the same content. So it is set up to look a lot like standardized testing, online testing that we want them to be familiar with. So it's a great tool for that. That is the stimulus. So that's the big thing about building a quiz. Right over here, you can kind of jump around a little bit. You can toggle to individual questions if you want, so it makes it easier to kind of jump around when you're editing. But what I was talking about with the points at the beginning is for each question, you're going to put the point value in. So like if I click on question 1 here, I scroll down here to the bottom, that's where you can put where the individual points are worth for each question. So that's what I was referring to, that the points, however many points as they add up here by question, needs to match what's on the total quiz points that's on that first page, or else it kind of lets you know that they don't match up and it'll adjust. So you just kind of want to make sure that those points match up. So the next thing I want to show you, I'm going to hit return, and now it's time to kind of tell you some of the bad news as it stands right now. And I'm pretty confident that they're going to resolve some of these. But issue number 1 currently is that you don't get a notification that a quiz has been submitted and is ready to be graded. That's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is that until you actually grade it, so if there's open-ended questions, for example, it's only going to give the score for those that can be graded. So if you had 5 questions, 4 were multiple choice and 1 was essay, and kiddo got all 4 right, it's a 10-point question, or it's a 10-point quiz, it's going to give them 8 out of 10 in the grade book, because you haven't graded the open-ended ones yet. So if your quiz that you use is all open-ended and a kid submits it, it's going to go in as a 0. So I've been told by folks from Canvas that is something that's going to be resolved, but just so you know, open-ended questions will not be scored, but it'll be reflected that way in the grade book until you actually grade it. That's the first thing to be aware of. The second thing is there's not at this point a very easy way to get to SpeedGrader to be able to grade these things. So the way as of right now to do it is you have to be, if you're in the old grade book, you should be able to click, like there's a drop down at the top of the column in the grade book for those quizzes. One of the choices should be SpeedGrader, and you can get to it that way. I use the new grade book, so in the new grade book, which if you haven't watched the video on that, you might want to, because that's coming January 1st. What you actually have to do What you actually have to do is, in any of the students that have submitted the new quiz, you click in the cell for their grade, click the door, opens up this course card over here, and you click speed grader from there. So I personally don't like that I have to go 2 or 3 clicks to be able to get to the speed grader, and if a student had submitted something, it would show up right there. I'd see the responses to all the questions and then actually grade the individual essay questions, open-ended questions themselves. So I've got to believe they're going to clean that process up to be able to have you access through SpeedGrader to be notified that a student has turned in a quiz. Those are just too important for them not to fix. So I don't think that's enough reason not to try it out, though. Because of the enhanced question types, I think it's definitely worth doing. So again, no date on when this new quizzes will be released, but you can turn it on now and take advantage of that. If you'd like help with this, if you're trying this and having issues, reach out to myself or any other member of the e-learning team, and we'll be glad to help you with new quizzes.